Hey guys, welcome to the Game Dev Discussion Podcast. This is episode 38. This is episode 3 of the sort of Remedy Spotlight. So far we've had a cinematic designer and a senior producer on. And this week we've got our first concept artist. We've got senior concept artist, Leo Calamati. How are we doing, bro?
Hello, all good, Sven. Thank you for having me.
Dude, it's a pleasure. I'm excited, man. I haven't spoken to a concept artist, and it's mainly because I don't really... I think I have less understanding of concept art than I do of programmers. Like, I just don't interact with you guys very much. So this
we are
is
a
very
weird race.
Man, like, so I'm gonna apologize to any concept artists listening now, because some of these questions may seem very ignorant and may seem super basic compared to like when I'm talking to environment artists. I'm an ignorant fool, so warnings are out there early. So, concept art. Now, from the guys I have spoken to, the term concept art is about as much as a variable as saying a 3D artist.
Absolutely, yeah. It's can contain a lot of different type of jobs. To be honest, it's
so like for you, like just you as a isolated person. What does the role entail? What does it mean for the job?
So what I can say is that so I've been in this industry for 9 years now.
Yeah.
And what I can tell is that every concept artist has a different idea what concept art is.
Okay.
So you find many concept artists that are more like illustrators.
Okay.
that they like to focus on a pretty picture to represent the what they have in mind, and some concept artists that are a bit more towards the act of designing itself, and some where they are just in terms of like sketching and direction to the theme, which probably represents me a bit more, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of variety, and it depends on what kind of project you're working on, what kind of field you're working on. At the moment I'm in games, but before I used to freelance, so I worked in lots of different kind of fields.
Mm-hmm.
But basically the purpose of the role is to visualize an idea. Simple as that. Possibly representing something that hasn't done before, or that is kind of new, or that maybe even the client or leads or whoever give you the idea, maybe you can reinterpret it in your own way and kind of put a bit of your own in the game or the project you're making.
As I say, so how much back and forth do you have with your, say, creative director or art director? Because I can imagine it's like, is it, okay, we're going to focus on this one shot because this is like the key shot for the game, and you'll like do, I don't know, 50 iterations? Or is it like, okay, just do what you, based on all of your research and the information we're giving you, go create some concept art key shots of what you're interpreting it as, and then we'll come back and forth. Like, how do you get to that end piece of concept art? What does that look like?
It really changes from studio to studio, I have to say. In the last 3 years, I worked at Remedy, and which I really love as a workplace. And I found myself very, very free in a way, where they kind of give you a vague hint of what they have in mind, and they trust your weird imagination. When developing Control the last 3 years, I found myself more often than not being able to come up with my own ideas and put them directly into the game, and having to deal with the director, which is Yanni Pukinen, just in a few occasions, because what he's very good at is that he gave a very clear intention, the direction of what the overall project would have been, the style, and so on, and gives you the tools then to create yourself what you want to be in the game.
Okay, so like coming on to like Control, like now I'm gonna have to say of the games that came out, it really caught my eye. I won't lie, I was sleeping on it a little bit. Like, I weren't paying much attention, and then I saw some of the trailers and I was like, holy shit, visually this is a stunning game. Like, I'm a big fan of brutalism. Brutalism is like, for me, it is like an interesting thing. Although it can be done badly in actual world architecture, I find it very interesting as an art form.
Yeah,
how did that come about?
Yeah, I always basically I found myself to basically lead the vision for the environment artists in the game,
Okay.
and I was telling them that brutalism is the graphic design of architecture. You know,
Mm.
in graphic
That's,
design, if you do a font that is slightly wrong, everything collapses, right? Everything suddenly looks quite bad.
yes.
With brutalism is the same. You have to follow very strict rules in a certain sense. Like you have to need to have a very strong sense of shape while maintaining and composition, while maintaining everything very simple. And it's tricky. It's not easy, and took me long to learn it. To be honest, and took me a lot to teach, let's say, the environment artists to uh, to follow the guidelines. And I have to say that we have an insanely talented team of environment artists in Control. That's really without them it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, because that's one of the things I've noticed with brutalism is like it's very the temptation can creep into like because you end up with very large flat surfaces.
Yes.
And the temptation can creep into like, oh, let's just add like a little thing or a little something, and it's like then you just, like you said, you just break the whole illusion at that point.
Absolutely, it couldn't be more true. Basically, often for myself, like there's a very, very, very good environment artist. There are remedies, Masao Ogino, that basically he's an environment artist with an insane amount of experience, but he wanted to add more details, more details. I was like, stop, man, stop, because as I was telling them, brutalism should be a canvas for the Latin artists in a way.
Yeah, I was just about to say. I bet the lighting, like, it's
Yes.
basically the architecture looks pretty dull, like when you're looking at an unlit scene. But then when you add all
Exactly.
the lights, it like just it comes to life.
You need to imagine that, and we worked a lot closely with the Latin artists to kind of make everything fit together, right? Again, not easy because, of course, lighting art often comes much later in production.
Yeah.
And so you spend for a long, long time with this very boring looking game.
Yeah.
I remember like producers started to be worried that the game would have looked very boring, and we were like, no, trust us, it's going to work, it's going to work out. But yeah,
Okay.
challenging but cool, fun.
So did it feel weird to you then? Because a lot of Control has this massive clash between the brutalism and the organic elements. When you look at the concept art, that's a big striker thing. Is like you got these like really big, bold, almost sterile shapes being like completely shattered by all of the sort of the magic elements and the like the sci-fi elements. Did that feel odd to you to do? Because obviously you have a really good understanding of brutalism. So did it feel weird to then completely break it? Which is the intention. I get that's the intention, but like
it was kind of one of the pillars of the game, right? That's we focused in contrast in brutalism. It's like order versus chaos. It's again concrete, boring concrete, gray versus organic, colorful entities. You know, very grounded environment versus mystical powers and supernatural abilities. So I mean, I would say that's kind of one of the key parts of Control. And yes, it was a bit challenging at first, but at the end, you kind of learn to use this contrast to your advantage. And even if things feels like they don't fit well, it's a matter of trying. And trust me, we for every kind of new element that we were inserting into the game, we had to make so many concepts and test so many things until it worked. But again, it's a trial and error, and we had very good direction.
Did how to explain this? I don't want to be offensive. Did you?
Don't worry.
For me, the whole game has a very unnerving, unnatural feel to it.
Yes.
Even when you take the magical elements, when you look at very large open areas which are have a brutalistic element to them, they can feel uncomfortable. This is something I noticed. So I always use, and this isn't saying that the Control is a bad environment, but have you seen the Alien films?
Yes. Yeah.
So I always say Alien 1 and 2 are great films.
Yes.
Alien 3 I didn't like. However, when I watch Alien 3, I feel like I'm in that nasty, unpleasant place, and
Yes.
I got to give it credit for that.
I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that with control. It's like when you're in these big open environments, it's just uncomfortable to be in. Now, was that like a happy accident, or was that something that like was actually intended? Because that's what I noticed. Is I was just like the whole time like, fuck, this is just weird how open this place is.
I think that's where it all started with control, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think the idea of the bureau itself and the brutalism and the sense of oppression and being closed into this building that it's infinite inside potentially, but still you're close into a space. I think that was a starting point. Then the story unfolded based on the setting. There is Stuart McDonald. There is our world designer, basically, which kind of acts as an art director as well. He managed to make this world functional and how would you say, like, oppressive and creepy at the same time. Yeah, it all started from there. Even the narrative team and Sam Lake leading them, they kind of worked. They kind of gave an initial idea of what they had in mind, but then it was mostly developed, in my opinion, the world by the art team, and then afterwards redeveloped by the narrative team.
I have to say, I will say this, and I'm sorry, I'm stealing that as a descriptive word for art. Is oppressive. It's a very visceral word, like, to describe something as, but like, yeah, that whole brutalistic and the whole game in itself, it has that claustrophobic and like oppressive vibe.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm stealing that word because that's a very good word to describe it. So that's control. Going back to concept art a little bit. I have a very clear head whenever I speak to juniors or actually anyone trying to get into the industry from a 3D point of view. I have an answer when it's like, oh, what do I need to do to get into the industry? For concept art, someone applies, a junior artist, a junior concept artist applies for Remedy, and you're the guy who looks at the CV and looks at the portfolio.
Yeah.
What is it you look for? Like, because with 3D, it's very binary. It's like, do you have this skill? Do you have this skill? Do you have this skill? Do you understand this piece of software? Do you know this pipeline? Like, it's a very binary process. I just can't help but feel like concept art just isn't like that. So what do you look for?
I won't lie, it's not an easy field to get into, but not because, like many people say, there aren't enough jobs, because actually, I would say in the last few years, there are many more jobs than it used to be when I started, because companies are discovering what concept art is, and why before it was a bit a less important job, I would say, was considered. So I think there are more spots, but the competition is very, very high. So there are several things to keep in consideration, in my opinion, and I review portfolios on a monthly basis, basically, for Remedy. First of all, it needs to fit the studio. A thing that I see many juniors do wrongly is to apply with a portfolio that has, I don't know, happy teddy bears to a game that makes, to a company that makes military shooters, right? So that is one of the key elements. Do research of where you're applying to. Like, I really, that's vital, because some portfolios I found that technically very, very good, but don't fit what Remedy does at all. How am I to hire someone that's, I don't know if he does the things that we do, right?
Is that not very transferable then? Like, so for 3D art, if someone like, so say a high poly ZBrush artist, like if they sculpt a tree, I assume they can just, like, ZBrush, so you'll be able to sculpt, I don't know, organic matter.
Yeah.
Like, is it not so transferable for concept art, do you think?
It really depends. It really depends on the situation. There are some cases, like there is a concept artist that we hired about a year ago, that we realize some abilities that even if her portfolio wasn't in line at all with Remedy's. But it's more rare, let's say. So, of course, there is some technical skill involved that is required, right? But that's a requirement. That's not like enough to be hired. What is very important, at least for us at Remedy, is to see fresh ideas, which I know it's a haunting term for some people, but personally, when I judge a portfolio, I'm more interested in seeing something that I haven't seen before. Sometimes internally we make the joke of the ArtStation portfolio, the typical station portfolio.
Go on, no, I need to know, because this exact joke happens in 3D art. So go on, ArtStation portfolio of concept art. I want to hear it.
Yeah, it's the fantasy landscape with the dudes on the hill with the stick in his hands, looking at the distance.
Oh no, go more. I need more.
Or like the sci-fi spaceships or whatever, they all look like same designs, just reworked with different materials and color palettes, basically. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the big majority. And sometimes we find portfolios that are technically stunning, but they don't give you anything, right? After you looked at them, you're like, oh yeah, that was cool, but I saw many others, and I have to watch another 50 portfolios today. How am I going to remember that one?
Yeah.
Right. So my advice, of course, that doesn't apply to every studio. Like Remedy is pretty unusual, I would say. Yes. But my advice is to be unique, in a way, to stand out from the crowd, because it's a massive crowd. Like at Remedy, like our hiring team told me that concept art is the kind of the job that gets the most applications at Remedy. Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's the one that has the least percentage of being hired.
So with that though, is that because as a concept art, so I've completely misunderstood concept art, I think, because you guys are actually doing a great deal of design along. You're not just being shown a photograph and go, oh, turn that into like our style. Like you're actually having to design the worlds a little bit. It's like, it's not just you're not, I don't know, guided as much as I think you I assume. So like you want to see people show stuff in a portfolio that is showing their design ability, not just their drawing ability.
Absolutely, yes. And of course, there are different kind of concept artists, like we were saying before, and each one applies also for a different phase of development, I would say.
Okay.
Like when you're doing pre-production, for example, you want more mood boards and big views, let's say, of what the game will be, right? Kind of high-level concepts. And just, you want with concepts in production to show what is your vision for the game that's going to be. While during production, it's going to be much more like design focused and probably a bit more technical as well. So to support lighting artists, prop artists, character artists, and much more specific.
Yeah.
While towards the end of production, you might have to kind of do a lot of feedback in that direction on the levels, like paint overs and things like that. And I had to do a lot of that in Control. I literally went to, I think, almost every single room of the game and painted over feedbacks. And that's not very artsy. Like, it's not like you're actually painting, but just like writing notes on some screenshots, right? But that's part of the job as well. And if you don't, and you need to kind of show that you have an eye for this stuff in a way. Maybe not much in your portfolio, but in your interview, if you get to that stage.
I wonder, does that not mean, is there not room for that in your portfolio to, like, I don't know, take a screenshot of a game and this would be the spitball, and like, would that be useful if someone's had a screenshot of the game and they actually overpaint?
Personally, I would love to see that. I would love to see that more in portfolio, but I understand that it's a bit scary for many artists to show rough work and sketches. I used to be like that when I was at the beginning of my career. It is scary. And
isn't it also that they don't want to paint, they have the fear of, oh, I'm painting over somebody's work and giving my 2 cents of what I do with it, and they feel like they're stepping on toes.
It's that, and also the idea of posting something that is a bit more sketched and less refined. Although, in my opinion, that's where you see the main strengths of the artist. But some people are a bit afraid of that, and I understand it, to be honest. It's not easy,
Yeah. And I know also for like being in production anyway. Like I know it's two types of concept artists. It's like the guys who are capturing the mood and are very expressive, and the guys who are giving you a line sketch and shading, which
Yes.
I could, as an environment artist, reverse engineer and break down and model like for like,
Yeah,
versus the expressive
absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah.
Now, when I've spoken to a few concept artists I have, there's a term they use, and they're always like, "Oh yeah, we're just trying to capture the mood." And I get, as an artist, I understand what they mean, but like, as a concept artist, I'm hoping you might help me rationalize it. Like, what does
Yeah.
that mean? When you're trying to capture the mood, what does that even mean, like, in layman's terms?
It's not probably easy to describe, but I'll try my best. I would say kind of represents what is the vision that you have for that scene that of the game, and that includes a bit of everything. So it includes the composition, the lighting, the storytelling that you are bringing in. And of course, the environment design or character design, or maybe even like the animation if you have some character posed in some interesting ways that help telling the story. But at the end of the day, setting the moods, I would say it's kind of a form of storytelling, in my opinion. Like when you see like if any scene from Blade Runner, right? Even if you take a screenshot, you kind of have a feel of the atmosphere that these characters are living in, right? It's kind of trying to give these feelings in just one shot, let's say. In more practical terms, of course, it's more technical terms, actually. It's about having a very good knowledge of composition and light in the first place. That's, in my opinion, of course. I'm sure other artists will disagree with me, but in my opinion, well, we will disagree with each other between artists, right?
No, dude, concept artists and environment artists, you put them two in a room, they'll probably end up out like killing each other, like on this sort of stuff. I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm trying to keep my opinions to myself. Like, no, you're fucking wrong.
No, I mean, so every it's a teamwork, right? Making games. So every single job is important, in my opinion, equally. Of course, there are jobs that glue other roles together in a way, and I feel that concept art is a bit of that, because we end up working with a bit of everyone, and so we kind of try to tie things together, and of course that comes a lot by the vision that the art director has. Like, if the director has a strong vision, that gives you the tools to bring that forward and kind of show it in pictures to the people you work with. They might be the cinematic guys, might be the environment artists, might be whoever.
Just out of curiosity, like our art director, Taylor Brandenberger at Decagum, he said something when he came on a podcast, and it's like, one, it was the first time I heard it, and I'm just curious what you think of it, because I think it actually applies probably to this whole capture the mood thing. When he's critiquing people and he's critiquing artwork, he sees it from like can you imagine it with his five senses? There's one thing like being able to see the image. But it's like, can you imagine what it's like to be in there? Like, can you imagine the sound? Can you imagine the smell? And it's something which doesn't get thought about a great deal. And now I don't know whether this is to do with what we spoke about earlier. Like, when I watched Alien 3, I imagined the way it would smell. I imagined the sounds. And it's the same with like
Absolutely,
Control. I feel the same. It's like when I'm there, like you already used the words like it's oppressive, it's claustrophobic. You imagine the air being really heavy. You remember the sounds being really dull. Like, is that something you actually? I don't mean to be condescending. It's like, do you think about that, or is it all just subconscious for you? Or are you actually consciously thinking?
I think
this sort of stuff.
It used to be a bit more subconscious when I was a bit less expert, I would say.
Oh, really? Okay, that's weird. I thought it would be the other way around.
No, actually, it was. When you. I don't know if you used to draw or you draw, but I remember when I was a kid, I used to draw comic books on my own and make silly faces, right? When drawing, like making the character face when he was punching someone and so on. And it's kind of the same. You have that feeling inside. You imagine it, but you can't rationalize it properly. And in my opinion, the more experience you gain, the more you force yourself to think about it. So if you have a scene inside of a volcano, you think about how would it feel on the characters in there, or how would it feel, and you try to rationalize everything that happens in there. Like, is the hair thicker? Is the light coming from, it's basically, it's about taking something that is a bit more like natural, like as a instinct, and try to rationalize it so that you can analyze what you would feel there and then apply it to the image.
Right. Okay. That's right. Okay. And what about like like if you show someone like a piece of concept, so say you're our director, if you show them a piece of concept art, and I always like, basically I like judging people's knee-jerk reactions when I show art to people. I'm like, I'll show concept artists, I'll show programmers, I'll show producers, and their knee-jerk reaction, like their just basic instinct reaction, is the one I actually care about a lot, because it's all, with art you're always trying to convey an emotion. And if I show someone something and they don't have to think, they just subconsciously and instinctively just look at something and have a particular reaction.
Absolutely,
that's what I'm looking for. What like when you're doing concept art? I mean, for 3D art, I think it's a little bit easier because we have all our parts laid, like, sort of separated. Like, concept art's like an image. So essentially, your end product is a flat image. With 3D, it's far more like broken up, and there's elements which you can use to like say, okay, this bit's what's wrong, so we need to address this, and I can isolate that and work on it. If you show someone something and like you didn't convey the emotion, how do you, or like it doesn't do what you needed it to do? I mean, how do you even go about troubleshooting what went wrong in order to like fix the issue? Like, do you even know how to?
It is not easy at all. Absolutely. But it happens, absolutely. And there are some areas, like in Controller, like we were saying before, that we had to go through a lot of different versions because it just wasn't bringing in the motion, right? Now, sometimes when you are in full production, you don't have time to fix it. But my advice in a situation sometimes is take a step back, move to something else if you can, and then go back at it afterwards,
right?
And try again from scratch. Doing research sometimes is for the best.
Okay.
Honest, in my opinion, everything can be fixed, of course, but sometimes it takes longer to fix something that's if I'm talking about extreme cases, right? You show the piece that just doesn't work, doesn't convey any emotion, doesn't give the mood. But I would say that the idea is to go back at it with a fresh mindset and focus on the fundamentals, and focus on what is the impression you want to give, what is the feeling they want to give, and do research regarding that. Research, I mean, of course, searching pictures, reading books, watching movies, everything you can to help you get the feeling of what you want to express, basically.
It's like go out and be inspired again. I remember watching Joe Rogan was talking about this because he's obviously a stand-up comedian, and one of the things he says when he's got that writer's block and he's struggling, he's like, right, I'll just stop doing writing, I'll just go out and absorb media that inspires him. So for him, it's to go and watch more live comedy, it's to go watch films, it's to go on a holiday and just get inspired to do whatever it is he's there to do again, rather than bash his head against the brick wall.
Like for example, I'm a musician as well, and I play in bands and we are touring and stuff. It's quite serious about it, let's say. Sometimes some of my music has been inspired by stuff that I studied by doing concept art, and vice versa. Sometimes my concept art has been influenced by my music's researches, right? Because you never know where you can get inspiration, because it's all about feelings at the end.
It's very weird, isn't it? Because I think you guys, I don't know, I'm probably going to upset some people by saying this. I can't help but feel like concept art's closer to that expressive element than 3D art. For me, like, I love 3D art. It's what my whole career is. But when I think of that idea of, you've just said you could be inspired by music and music influences your art and your art influences your music.
Yeah,
It's quite like, for me, concept art is very raw. When I see people work on it, where people are doing it, it's a very raw thing. Whereas 3D art, I'm like, it's so logic driven, if that's the best way to describe it. Like, it's very technical. Like, even on the most
definitely.
fundamental
Yeah,
level,
yeah,
it's technical. So it's weird to think, like, I could never, like I said, it's going to upset people. It's probably going to be people who are going to inbox me next and be like, no, music has influenced me as an environmental artist, so it inspires me, or like, I inspired music through my 3D art. And I'm like, fair enough, it's just my interpretation. But this one thing with that, with the concept art, it's reminded me to mention that you do music too. How, like, transferable is this skill? For me, as an ignorant person looking in, concept art seems like the sort of thing that you could literally up and move into a majority of creative medias and not have to change a great deal. With 3D environment art, if I'm like, okay, I'm doing games and I move into mobile, I've got to like completely change my pipeline and completely change
right.
a bunch of stuff. If I go into film, again, it changes drastically. If I go to VR, it changes drastically. Whereas for concept art, I feel like you could up your whole skill set from what you did on Control and move into film and be just as, hit the ground running, so to speak.
I would say that what changes is the limitations that you have.
Do you have limitations?
Well, in certain sense, like for example, if you're working for games, and your engine doesn't support a creature with 6 arms, you can't make a creature with 6 arms.
Oh, okay. So you actually. Oh, okay. So you. Sorry, I'm not to be like rude. You guys are considering the limitations of the hardware as well at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like we need to learn the engine itself, because otherwise, I mean, for juniors, it's not that expected, but more for seniors level, and now I'm lead. It's required, because otherwise, you just design something, waste days design something that can't be done, right? Back when I was freelancing, I worked for movies, and the cool thing about movies is that you don't have these kind of limitations, but at the same time you have limitations of other sort of things, like of locations, of different type of budgets depending on how big is the movie, and things like that. So yeah, it is more similar than it would be for you, for environment artists, to change type, let's say, of industry. But still, you have to keep all the things in consideration. One of the main things is the purpose. Like when you do concept for movies, for example, it's more about giving the director a view of what's in his own mind, because he will describe you what's in his mind, and you just have to put it down and show it to him, and he'll be like, okay, let's change this, okay, and so you iterate a bunch of times, and then he will use that shot as reference when filming the movie, when giving it to his VFX artist, his lighting artist, and so on. And sometimes they keep it on set as well, right? While for video games, instead, it's more like designing something, very often something specific, or like giving guidelines to a team that you directly talk with them. It's just a slightly different process. Although the media is the same, is painting in Photoshop, but the purpose is quite different, and the process is different.
Right. What you mentioned, at the beginning of that, there's a big difference between like a junior to a mid to a senior and to a lead. I anyone who's like in these sort of positions, I always ask, because I think it's something that is not very well understood within our industry. What is the how do you grade a junior to a mid to a senior to a lead? Like, what's the criteria? Because with so use 3D as an example, it's like a combination of like just being at the job for a long time, understanding multiple pipelines, just raw ability. With concept art, is it quite similar? Is it like, okay, just time versus like just raw ability, or is there like other factors that come into what determines who moves up the different tiers of an artist?
Yeah, I would say it's a mixed bag.
Right.
So, skill of like literally painting skills or designing skills, of course, is very important, but it's not the most important, I would say. I think the ability to do teamwork and
Okay.
to know how to help others is one of the main things.
Yeah.
Uh, let's say that if it was a video game, right, concept artist would be a support class.
Okay.
You need to basically, help the team, visualize when they're stuck on something, what they need, and so on. But to do that, you need to understand their jobs. You need to understand what they need and how their job works.
Mm.
And so, as I was saying before, you might need to know the engine, you might need to know the pipelines, and so on. But of course, when someone is junior and just joined the industry, how can you expect them to know? Because that's stuff that you learn in the field.
Yeah.
You can't study these things, right? Also, because every company works slightly different from this point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the expectations from a junior to mid to senior and the leads are a lot in terms of sure ability, but mostly experience on the field, knowing what is needed, and ability to lead other people and to mentor other people. The way I
Okay.
see it is that mid-level artists, they should be able to at least give advice or feedbacks to juniors, and seniors to all the other ranks and so on, right?
Mm.
Uh, of course, I don't like strong hierarchy, and at Remedy we have a quite flat hierarchy,
Yep.
and everyone accepts feedbacks for everyone, of course.
Yeah.
But being able to do it, it is something that is required to gain seniority.
Yeah, so I guess you have to be like, it's actually quite a proactive role by the sounds of it then. You can't just sit and just worry about your craft. Like, you're going to have to be quite active and going out and helping people, both, not in just in your team, obviously, as a concept team, it's a given to support you as a concept artist, but actually support your designers, support your lighting
Yeah,
artists, support your environment artists. It sounds
yeah,
quite crucial.
absolutely. One of the first lessons that I gave to a trainee that joined us last year was okay. So you have to do this task that has been assigned to you. First thing to do, you stand up, you go to the environment artist that is going to work with your concepts, and you meet with him. You talk with him, you learn about him and what he needs. Then you talk to
Mm.
the level designer and what is their needs. You have something that doesn't convince you, maybe about the gameplay that is going to be in this area. You go to talk to the gameplay guys. It is a very social kind of work, and it is needed. Like, that's, in my opinion, what makes the difference between artists that don't manage to build up much their career,
Yeah.
because that's instead they grow quickly. It's the ability to help others and talk with others. And I know that for some people, many artists, they tend to be introverts,
Yeah.
and so it might not be easy for everyone. But it's something that you gotta learn. Social skills are important.
Yeah, we were talking about this in the Decagon chat. We were all in there just having a sort of open conversation about it. And one of the things we came to was, we don't, when it comes to hiring now, both in my current studio and when we talk about it at Decagon, it's like, if I had a choice between a really good person, like, who I know is easy to work with, and they're a good artist, but I know they're a good person, and then the best person, like the best artist out of the group, but
Yeah,
I either don't know them or I'm like, I've heard one or two iffy stories. Like, because this is the thing, like most people, you could probably dig up, or like if you speak to enough people, you'll find somebody who just had a bad run-in with that person.
yes, yeah,
But we did basically come to the conclusion of, I'd rather have the probably like 7 out of 10 artists who I know I could work with and have a good relationship with, rather than a
yeah.
10 out of 10 artist.
No doubt about that. Yeah,
But the thing is that I feel as if whenever I say this or whenever I have this conversation, all the people I'm speaking to always like, yeah, that's completely makes sense. Yeah, when I speak to so actually I've just been at a talk today at a university, And one of the big things I said was basically they're all sat in their little friendship groups, and I could see it from the class. We went up to the studio and then we went downstairs to the hall where I was giving the talk. And like when I come onto the social sides and stuff, and I was talking about it, I was like, guys, I've even seen just like for me being here, you're all sat in your little cliques, and you are literally there's like a divide in this room, like where there's a group of people here and a group of people here, and you just aren't communicating with each other.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, you're at university, like this is a great time to do it, but you should really learn to like just speak to people who aren't your natural group of people to talk to.
Yeah.
And I guess it's hard for young people, but I don't know, I speak to enough younger artists or junior artists, and they're like, it either is they're not happy about hearing this, or it's surprising. They're like, oh well, I should just be able to just do my job and be fine. I'm like, yeah, you can do your job and be fine. If you want to climb and you want to be like a senior, or you want to be a lead, or you want to be a principal, sorry, you're going to be interacting with people on a daily basis. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but it always seems surprising. People always see, like the more junior people always seem quite surprised by it, to hear that, and I'm always like, is it that surprising? Like, you look at your lead. Your lead barely does any artwork. They're the ones talking to everybody and organising everything. So you're surprised that to be a lead artist, you can't just be a one-man show.
And he's like that. There's no other way to put it. It is like that. You need to be able to communicate with people and to accept that the more you go forward in your career, the less you will actually work on the piece itself, and more you spend more time in meetings.
Does that ever bother you?
Personally, not much. Maybe because I've been painting so much during control that nowadays I'm fine with taking a step back. Like, there's been in control. I remember there's been a month that I made 31 concepts in 1 month.
A full concept a day, pretty much.
Full, exactly, yeah. And I wasn't even crunching. I was like really producing a lot. So a productive phase, and I enjoyed that. But nowadays I'm working on new projects. I can't speak about it, of course.
Yeah, no, that's
and now I'm basically art lead in these projects, and I find myself that I made 2 concepts in almost 2 months.
And you don't mind that? You're like, you know what? I'm ready to I'm okay with this.
I'm fine because at the end, this comes totally to personal preferences, right? But to me, I started to do art because of creativity, because I like to create. I like to see something that wasn't there before, right? And by being leads, even if you don't do things directly, you work with people to create these things. So basically, these people are kind of, the job that they do, it kind of flows through you in a way, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like even if I'm not producing myself, still I'm creating, if it makes sense.
Yeah, no, completely get what you mean. So you're in the part of the bigger picture. Like, okay, you did create the jigsaw piece, but you helped create the full finished jigsaw.
Exactly. You hold the vision, basically, of what the visuals will be. And that is satisfying in a different way. But personally, that's what I like to do now. That was I need now, probably. But let's talk about it in 2 years again and see.
I'll get you back on in 2 years, bro.
All right.
What I'm gonna say, is there anything that surprised you not in a negative way, but you're like, oh shit, I didn't think that would be a thing, but that's the thing. So for example, with I'm trying to think of one which I can say. As I stepped up to principal at my current studio, it was like, okay, you're going to be now like dealing with clients, and you're going to be, you know, handling the whole team and making sure the whole team's on track.
Yeah.
And I was like, suddenly I was like, oh shit. The thing that so this is what got me, this really caught me off guard, was I'm the last sort of like line of defense. It's like, if something's wrong, that's on me. Like, it's not on the artist who screwed up, it's not on the programmer who did it wrong, it's on me because I'm the one who let it past my sort of filter. And that caught me off guard. It was like, you know, something was bad for the client, and it's like, the fuck, bro, how did you let this happen? I'm like, and part of me was like, this isn't even my error, and I'm like, oh shit, this is my error. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, that completely caught me off guard. So is there anything to the job, since I stepped up to like the seniors and the lead position, that it sort of caught you off guard a little bit?
Yeah. To be fair, I would say all the kind of like what we were saying now in a certain way. Basically, the whole team handling and the fact that it's not just about the work that they do, but their uh, how they spend their time at the office, how happy they are, how is their life
Right.
going, right?
Yeah.
And how much all of that impacts the work, the quality of the work, and also the quality of your life at work, right? Because you have to work with people that are not happy to be there, or who don't like you, or are depressed, or going through a rough phase. You need to find a way to kind of help them in a way, even if you're not a psychologist, let's say.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. Uh, I'm lucky that I'm in a company that is kind of a big family, and most of the people go along with each other very well and very, very happy. But some drama always happens, and you have to
That's
deal with
nature.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
and
interesting thing. When we were teaming one last week, and he said like part of his job is like obviously make sure everyone's running, like, everything's running smoothly, but also to make sure people are going to get through this sprint and be able to do the next sprint. Like we don't burn out our resource that is our production team.
yes, yeah,
That was really, actually, it was really refreshing to hear. Like one, it was refreshing from a senior's point of, sorry, a producer's point of view. To hear it coming from a lead as well, like the fact that you have that in your like, it's in your, what's the word, immediate attention to
yeah,
worry about the sort of happiness of your staff. It's very easy. You hear about like this is part of, like, I suppose it's part of social media, but in social media it seems like all you ever hear about is the bad. It's like fuck the studio, like it made me do this and they fired me or it did this to me or I had to do, and I'm like, and it's kind of sad because I think of like starting our juniors seeing that and going, God, what have I got myself into? This is still negative. So to speak to you guys, and I don't know if this is unique to Remedy, but I've already heard it speak to you guys, and you're saying, it's really important from a producer and a lead to be like, one of our priorities is like we want to make sure people are happy because that affects our work. Like, as an artist, I'm like, yeah, of course it does, but like it isn't. I don't hear it enough in the sort of in the social space. Now that might just because social media breeds negativity. It could be all to do with that. But to hear you say that and Timu say that, it's just it puts a smile on my face.
yeah. I'm glad to hear that. Keep in mind that Remedy is a special place. I have to say. I joined 3 years ago, as I was saying, and before that, I was living in UK, and I had my own my own freelance company, and I was doing pretty well. And Remedy approached me, and I didn't send my CV in the first place, let's say, and for the job. And I was a bit skeptical because I had bad experiences with previous studios where I worked in. So after some talking with them and some calls, I decided to go and visit the studio. And one of the things two things basically got me there. And one is they showed me the prototype that then became Control, and I was like, yeah, this is cool shit. And the second one is that I spent the evening out with the guys there, and I met some of the artists and other roles and so on. And I saw that people were happy, and they were enjoying their time there, and that makes it. I know it's a bit cheesy to say.
No, not at all.
But it is like that. At the end, if you think about it, you spend so many hours of your life working, right? You might as well spend it in a place that you like the people around you and you have fun. And of course you can't have fun every day, every single hour. There is drama happening always, don't worry, but as good as it can be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate. I've always said, I've said this multiple times on a podcast, I treat my colleagues like family, in a sense of you want the best for them and you want them to be happy, but wanting the best for them also means telling them what they need to hear. A great analogy I heard once was it's like a kid. You have a child. You don't want your child to stay a child, like a 7-year-old for the rest of their lives. You want them to grow and develop, but that means you have to tell them to stop doing silly things. They have to grow up.
Yeah,
and it's the same for your colleagues. Like, you want them to be happy. I want my colleagues to be happy, but at the same time, I want the best from them. And the best might mean you need to stop doing this silly shit. You need to grow up.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
you need to do X, Y, Z.
Harsh truth sometimes is needed.
Yeah, I mean, how like as a concept artist, and I don't know how with like 3D environments, I feel like sometimes you need to stick a bit more often because it's a very technical thing. Like you need to do this particular thing, and you're not doing it. Please do it. Okay, you're not doing it still. I really need to do this one specific thing in this pipeline, otherwise you break everything.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you need to use the stick very often in concept art, or how does that like relationship work?
Well, a remedialist concept artists are quite split between projects, so I don't end up having to lead them too much. I tend to lead more environment artists and character artists for the most part. But in Control, I kind of had to work with concept artists more like close, next to each other, and and I had to mentor them, some of them. And it's not easy because, of course, being that is a bit more less technical, but more abstract form of art, let's say, than environment art. Sometimes it's not easy to give feedback and to take feedback, and sometimes you come out with as an asshole for that. But still, you gotta push for it, and sometimes happens that even after you tell them, they don't do it. Not because they're doing purpose, or because maybe they don't get it. Maybe your feedback wasn't good enough, or the concept is too abstract to be referred. And in the case, you just you kind of let it go and try to fix it later if you can. In a way. Because again, the thing about concept art is not what you do is not what is the actual game, right? So it will get another interpretation by the environment artist or the character artist or whatever. Anyway, so you kind of give yourself another chance to solve some problems later on when the other artists are working on it, and you can, when you bring them the concept, you're like, hey, look. The concept artist made this in this image, but in my opinion, when you build this room, probably I would change this thing slightly, and you try to fix it that way. But yeah, it's not easy. I think I feel like relationship between concept artists in general is not easy because there is a lot of sense of competition, unfortunately.
Also, it's quite. I suppose you guys. I mean, to stick to the old cliche, you're the sort of the hyper emotional, like reactionary artist that the stereotype normally carries. One thing I think you know what, it's funny you mentioned about like maybe you mentioned like when you're talking about like when you're feedbacking people, like is it they didn't understand it, was I not clear enough? I have to admit it's more recently, and I think it's because I'm so used to working with particular people. I'm having to check my own like how I give feedback to people. So with Decagon we're all remote. And there's been a few times where I'm like, I've said my piece about what I want, and then it comes back and ain't quite what I want, and I'm like, my gut reaction has been like, fuck, why didn't you do what I asked? And then it's only been recently where like some close friends have been like, yeah, I thought you wanted that too, and I'm like, shit, okay, I need to maybe check myself a little bit and like think what I'm saying, because clearly what's in my head isn't coming across in what I'm saying, and that's what I've become a lot more conscious of now.
Definitely, and that's kind of links back to what we were saying before about seniority and leadership and so on, right? That's something that you gain with experience, and to realize that sometimes your feedback, your guidelines aren't the clearest one, and even if you think that you couldn't express it better, still it's up to you to express it to your team.
Dude, we've rattled through this. I can't believe how quick. I'll be honest, I didn't know how this was going to go, because like it's the same as when I had animators on. I'm like, we're in such different zones in terms of what we're doing that it's like, oh, okay, we can actually be able to have a conversation here. But I ask every guest towards the end, if you could speak to an 18-year-old or 16-year-old Leo at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself? This is very interesting from a concept artist as well.
Oh boy.
I always catch people off. I always like to catch people on the spot with this one.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. So Leo, what would I tell you? Uh, I would say to focus less on finding the right brush stroke or the right painting techniques, and more on like expressing your ideas. That's what I
Okay.
would say, and more like be creative and not scared of be creative. Because I think I used to be is that I was looking at these portfolios online and be like, okay, that's the stuff that should be in a portfolio. And maybe I had some crazy idea in my mind, but I wouldn't paint them because I was like, no, that's stupid, you
Yeah.
know. And instead, that's the cool part, is creating what you have in mind and putting an image, and that's the key. That's the soul of this job. So yeah, do more of that.
That's nice. I like that. So like, was that really an issue? Is that like it's a case of you're more tentative early on in your career, and towards the end it's like not towards the end. Sorry, the later on into your career you're thinking, okay, you feel more comfortable to express yourself. Was that a big thing for you then?
But of course, now I'm more confident about my art than I used to be
Oh, I
9 years
see.
ago.
Okay, it's more about
Uh,
being like self-conscious about the art itself, not so much about the ideas.
yeah, definitely that helps. I'd say, but also, well, when I started, when I started to study concept art, uh, it was a very different world. Let's say, especially online, you couldn't find many tutorials or guidelines. There was no ArtStation, or there were similar things, but there was DeviantArt, which is not like the best place. Let's say,
Yeah, yeah. Oh no,
uh,
don't get me started on DeviantArt.
yeah. So yeah, so for I'm Italian, and in Italy, concept art was completely non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was studying in a coin book academy in Firenze, and
Okay.
even teachers teaching there, they didn't know what concept art was. I stumbled upon it because a friend of mine went on holiday in London and
Yeah.
came back with the magazine Imagine FX.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, dude, look! I found this stuff. It's called concept art. Looks amazing." And I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, this seems impossible to make, you know?"
Wow, and that's where it started. It just started from a friend bringing a magazine back.
Yeah, that's how it started for me. Yeah.
Holy shit.
And I started to research online, but I could find very little information, especially for someone that lives in Italy, because I was looking for courses or stuff like that, and there was nothing at all. And even online, all the courses at the time were mostly like behind a big paywall that I couldn't afford.
Yeah.
There was no like what's called Gumroad or things like that. Uh, on YouTube you could find some tutorials, but they were more wrong than right. Let's say.
Yeah, I can imagine. The early
And
days of YouTube's a dangerous place.
yeah, I learned at the time a lot of stuff that actually slowed me down
Holy fuck.
in my learning. Yeah, because I learned things that were completely wrong. Just because a dudes on YouTube declared himself concept artist and would do tutorials with that,
Yeah, yeah.
But I had no idea. I had no reference. So, but nowadays it's much easier. That's also why you find so many insanely talented artists that are so young. Because there are the tools to learn nowadays. You can really, without the need to go to any big school or academy, you can already build yourself a very strong portfolio and skill set.
Man, I have to say, I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, Leo, man. It's amazing. Like I don't know. There's a lot of. I came into this conversation with a lot of preconceptions and ideas of what I thought all of this is, and I'm so glad I've had a concept artist now to go on and like actually sort of help make all of these ideas a bit more tangible and actually correct me on a few things, because a lot of my preconceptions turn out to be bullshit. So I have to say, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. It was very fun.
Yeah, and so everyone listening, remember the podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. Please, when these go up on the socials, all the retweets, all the shares, likes, follows, subscribes, because it helps us get information out there from great people such as Leo, and hopefully someone's going to learn a thing or two from hearing what he has to say. But we're going to wrap up. Leo, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Same here. Thanks a lot again.
Peace out.